Testing. I thought she was coming back on, that she was leaving September 16th to the 29th. Good evening, everybody. The school committees may seek to convene into recess into executive session for the discussion or action regarding these items of business from the open meeting under Rhode Island General Law, excuse me, 4246-4, and a discussion chief financial officer open position, Rhode Island General Law 4246-5A1. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to recess into executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. I hate that this is convene open session and recess. I get it. It's my reading.
Got my x-ray. I just have to have the MRI. And then as long as the hardware. Conference or library. Yeah, but there was. But there was no, able, we have a ready to be able. And as we go up, we're going to be, library.
Good evening, everybody. I will call the meeting to order at 7:04. Mr. Bradley Share. Here. Mr. James Restivo. Here. Miss Melissa Boyd.
Here.
Miss Michelle Russo.
Here.
And myself, Paula Whitford, here. Cal Vetter and Miss Kate Matsinesi are not with us tonight. So could you please join us in pledge allegiance to the flag? Do we have a motion to seal the minutes of the executive session?
A motion to seal the minutes of the executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes. There were no votes taken in the executive session to disclose. Moving on, we will move on to comments from the community. We don't have a sign-up sheet tonight. But I do see somebody standing back there, sitting back there. Are you looking to make a comment tonight, Mr. Beasley? Come on up.
In Storl Beasley. So I looked over this financial update was one of the things on tonight's agenda. So I'll make couple comments about it. When the 23-24 fiscal budget was passed back in the spring, it included in the salary and benefits, in the compensation, money for raises and money for increased benefits. So when the comments are made in like this document where it says that it doesn't include or does not include the benefits and salary compensation increases, that money was baked into this year's budget. Now, so the second thing is this, the savings for the closing of 2 schools. So it's about $1.5 million. Is that something that you'll be voting on tonight as to what you're going to do with that savings? So do we know where the savings went? Are we going to be told tonight where the savings went? Closed 2 schools and for a decline of 5 teachers. for a total of 13 people, closing two schools. Okay, and lastly for tonight, because you never get an answer, so. The enrollment. So now it's 2314. That's the one you have attached to the agenda tonight. 2,314 students. That's a drop of 195 students from last year. That's the largest decrease in enrollment in the last 22 years. Largest 1-year decrease. So it's almost 8%, almost a 1-year 8% drop in enrollment. You're about to have a joint meeting with the town council, figuring out what to do about the high school. Can we afford $150 million high school? Right now, every penny of that bonding is going to be put onto the backs of the taxpayers. There's nothing so far that's come from the school side that's going to help pay for this. You can't ask. So I'm giving you a little heads up here. If you ask to be level funded again this coming year, if you ask for level funding again, you may find yourselves behind the 8 ball as far as the taxpayers agreeing to pay for $150 million high school, or maybe even $125 million high school. It's on a per pupil basis. You could drop the amount of money from the general fund by $4 million for 195 students from this year. So right now, with our budget and our enrollment, our average per pupil cost right now is $29,800 and some dollars. If you ask for level funding, I don't think the taxpayers are going to vote for the high school.
Thank you, Mr. Beasley.
Okay, moving on from community comments. Would you like to make a comment? Come on up. Mhm.
Thank you. I'm Maggie Martin. I live in Wakefield here. I had emailed the school committee members. I don't know if, like the school building committee, if you guys have like a group email, because I couldn't find it. So I just tried to find everyone's individual email and copy and paste and sent it. I was hoping to find information about delayed maintenance at not only the high school, but all of the schools. I know we pushed out the decision on the bond, and that's not up for the ballot in November. And I do think the high school is not meeting the needs, but I'm hesitant, like a lot of residents in town, to entirely build new because we don't really have a reputation or a history of managing our existing schools. So I was just hoping to find, Brad, I think you wrote me back, Brad. if you have studies or reports or anything that show the delayed maintenance, like exactly what needs to be addressed at each school and how much at that time, if they said it would cost, I mean, in terms of necessary things like the roof, the HVAC, things like that across all of the schools in town. From speaking for myself, but I'm sure I've heard from a lot of other residents in town, we would rather spend money on things like that than tear down a building and build a whole new building. And then I also wanted to know about how the cost of the bond exactly is calculated, because the way I did it, it came out to be like if the average house is valued at 400,000 in town, then the increase in taxes in a year is more like 600 for that house than 78 that it was saying. So I don't know if I'm doing something totally wrong, but I don't know where the $78 came from. That just seems really low. Because if we're at, is it 1095 or 1105 right now for the mill rate? And if it goes up to 12.54, that's an increase of 1.9 or something like that, whatever it was. And I did it all out and it's more like $600. So I was just wondering exactly how that's calculated out. So yeah, the studies reports about the delayed maintenance, and that can be shared, because I've heard from so many people on the various committees and other people that are just really wanting to build a new high school. It seems like that they'll just say, well, RIDE is, build, like whatever their slogan is about newer is better or something like that. Newer and fewer. But if it's like 10 million or 20 million on maintenance versus 150 on a new building, even if RIDE gives a percentage, it's crazy. It's a lot of money. So, yeah, that's just, if you can share those, make them public or send them to me via email, whatever it is. I'm sure that you guys have done studies at the various schools, having an engineer or contractor, whoever it is, come out and tell you this needs to be done, this needs to be done, this has like this many years on it or whatever. Yeah.
So the school building committee does have a page, and they do have that information that you're seeking. The school committee is not a purview to determine how much taxes are going to be increased. That is the school building committee, the members of that group, and the town council and their finance person. That's not us here.
Okay.
Okay, so if
I
you
ask
go on Facebook, you will see that it's called the SBC. It is the School Building Committee
I have been
information.
I've been to several of their meetings. I think it's my first time at the actual school committee, and I forget who suggested I contact you guys about the delayed maintenance issues. I thought that was probably more of a building issue, but I know that Kate, I'm blanking on her last name, is on both.
Yeah,
She's not here tonight, but
you would
yeah,
find.
I don't want to go to I want someone to like tell me where it is. Like, I don't want to dig through, because I've been hearing this from people, like it should be pretty accessible to find, or who should I speak with directly?
Well, I know that they have been working on a better, more effective system for information.
Okay.
So I would refer you back to Kate, who
Okay.
isn't here tonight. And also just to comment on emails, I want to thank you for bringing it to my attention anyway, that you sent us all an email. Sometimes if you have not sent us an email before, it may
Sure.
go into the spam. And I will tell you that I'm not good at always checking the spam. So
Okay, yeah.
I will be checking and I'm probably gonna find that email over there. So I will do
Okay.
better in the future to just check them.
Okay.
So thank you for the reminder.
Um, so
Just for your information, the school committee does have a policy that it doesn't interact on community comment, and there's reasons behind that.
okay,
Open meetings concerns and a number of other concerns. So it has nothing to do with the, what your question actually is. I mean, it is just a policy that the school committee has because it's kind of walking the line when it deals with these things. I think that Kate would be an excellent person. And she can certainly reach out to my office if there's anything that my office can do. But the information if there was a study that should be a public document, so you should be able to get access to that. The town might be a good resource as well
Yeah.
as Kate.
okay. I did email Kate. I know the first time it didn't go through because I misspelled her last name, but the second time it went, but maybe like you're saying, because I've emailed her as part of the school building committee before because they have a group email, and I think you guys probably do too, but it seems like my questions are probably more for the building committee, I guess.
Does sound like a building committee issue,
Yeah.
especially as the project ramps up. The building committee is going to be boots on the ground as far as, discussing options and whatnot before it gets to the committee and then the town as well. So the
Okay.
building committee is certainly the place to go.
Okay, yeah, I just haven't seen the meeting on the calendar for a while. I guess since the bond was postponed or whatever it is, there hasn't been a meeting coming up. I know there's something on the 24th, like a joint meeting of is it the town council and the school building committee and the school committee, all three? But I was hoping to go to that with facts, like to come prepared to ask questions, so. Okay.
Ms. Merman, I believe your email to me also probably went into my spam, and like Ms. Whitford, I'm not good about checking the spam, although I probably need to start doing that on a more regular basis. So I apologize for not responding to you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to close the comments from the community and move on to our consent agenda. Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to remove item A, approval of meeting minutes from the consent agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes. Do we have a motion to approve the existing consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the remaining consent agenda, items B and C.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now now we need a motion to approve the minutes from the consent agenda.
I can make a motion to approve the minutes, the meeting minutes.
She
I
can't.
can't make the motion either. Oh, okay.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Mr. Bradley Share,
Abstain.
Mr. James Better. I mean, Steve, excuse me,
I know.
excuse me, James.
I forgive you. Aye.
Miss Melissa Boyd,
Abstain.
Miss Michelle Busso,
Aye.
and I for me, Paula Whitford. That motion passes 3-2. I'm sorry, Mr. Receiver. Okay, next
okay.
on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have the personnel action report in your packet. It's a couple of temporary leaves of absences, some hirings of some coaches, one winter coach and one we're happy to report a fall sport assistant coach and a couple of custodial transfers.
Hey, Mr. Littlefield.
Yes.
The committee would like to make a motion to remove items F and G. Do I have that motion, please?
I'll make a motion to remove items F and G from the superintendent's report.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
I have some questions about that.
Okay. So the reason that these two, so before you even ask that question, I know where you're gonna ask me. So the reason these two items were pulled from the superintendent's report is because they needed to go to the finance and budget first.
Into our policy, those items needed to go to budget and finance before they come before the full school committee.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further questions for? Okay, Ms. Boyd.
Just discussion. That was going to be my question. So thank you for putting that forward. I do want to ask and or make sure that, as was pointed out by the committee, by the community members, we do have an important meeting coming up, and I would like a chance to discuss this content before that date and to do so in public. So I'm wondering what the plans might be, and perhaps you all can speak to that, or the superintendent can speak to that end of it. I understand the reasoning and the process, but I just want to make sure we do have a chance to have some public discussion before that meeting.
So, Ms. Boyd, we are in the process of trying to find a date that is where the entire budget and finance subcommittee is available to meet. And we don't have a response to that doodle poll as of the present moment. So that's where we are, looking to actually schedule a budget and finance subcommittee.
I might add to that I'm hopeful that this budget subcommittee meeting can take place next week. And then that will allow us to meet in a special meeting or whatever we need to do to be able to have the conversation prior to the town meeting.
I just want to echo Ms. Boyd. I agree with that. And thank you for trying to do that. I know it can be difficult to coordinate schedules, but I also would appreciate having that discussion in public ahead of that meeting with the town council.
And just to add, for folks who are new to the meeting, and I know some folks are well aware of the process, that if we do have an agenda item, then we can answer some of those questions that come up in community comment, and or be able to hopefully put forward information, accurate information to the community. So I'm grateful for that opportunity to come.
Is there any further questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. And now back to you, Mr. Littlefield. Sorry for
That's quite all right, Madam Chair. As I said, you've got the list of personnel actions, leaves of absence, some hirings and some transfers. You also have the enrollment update, and I do want to point out that though this is dated October 3rd, it's still not quite our final October 1 enrollment. We're still accounting for some last minute enrollments in the district, and some homeschool requests, and but these are pretty accurate numbers that we have to report to you today. It's not exactly the report that we'll be submitting to RIDE later on in the week. Just some things to point out here. That yes, our total enrollment is down about 7%. I would also and about 5% at the high school level. I would point out that also what I find significant is to look at what has happened to our out of district career and technical education enrollments in the past 5 years. That in the past 5 years, those enrollments have increased 136%. And every student who leaves to pursue a career and tech program outside of our district, we pay that student's tuition to that community. Likewise, in the last 5 years, our charter school enrollment has out of the district has increased 50%. And for every one of those students whose family makes that choice, we also pay that tuition. So it has an impact. Those trends have an impact on our enrollment figures, and also have an impact on our budget figures as well, and on our expenditures. I would also say, as part of my report, I had the pleasure over the last week to attend 4 open houses. I was able to make 4 out of 5 schools. I was not able to make the Broad Rock open house, but that included 3 elementary open houses in a row: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday last week. I want to commend the principals there and the staff for making families feel welcome and informed, and teachers were especially making parents feel welcomed and informed. So they did a great job there. I would also report to you that we have as part of our discussion that we had at our school committee retreat 2 weeks ago. We have 2 requests for proposals that are just about ready to make public. One is for the equity audit that this committee has deemed a priority and has budgeted such. And then the other is for the search for a permanent superintendent. Those RFPs should be going out shortly. Hopefully by the end of this week, we look for. I would also point out it's October, and that means that it is National Principals Month, recognized by National Association of Secondary Principals and National Association of Elementary Principals. And I just want to mention Dr. McGare and Angela Christina at the high school, Tammy McNeese, Kevin Segal, and Gina Haberlin at Broad Rock School, and Dr. Ryan Borden at West Kingston School, John Rapport and Amy Hubertus at Peacedale School, and Elizabeth McGuire at Matunic School, and wish them a happy Principals Month. And most importantly, just thank them what they do for the children of our community. Moving on our facilities, questions, I would call on Mr. Mahoney, who has much more expertise than I in this area to give our update on facilities. Mr. Mahoney, please.
But I finally brought one tonight for you guys.
We have that ready to go? Mr.
Ready to
Mahoney?
go.
Okay,
And it's colorful.
look at you.
Next slide, please. Just overview. Next slide, please. So we're going to start with facilities energy management. The SK School Department has signed a contract for a new 2-year electrical supply contract. This will save us about 4 cents per kilowatt hour versus the current rate we're paying. And this should lead to $70,000 plus. I don't want to say savings, but lower than last year's spending. Last year, we were at a 4 cent higher rate per kilowatt hour. So we had to adjust the budgets. That's factoring into less usage at Wakefield and Curtis Corner. Current gas contract, we're still in the statewide bid pool with the Rhode Island Office of Energy. We joined this pool with many other municipalities, the town of South Kingstown, and other school departments to go out with the state of Rhode Island's Office of Energy to get the best possible gas pricing. And they're looking at a 1-year up to 5-year commitment for locked in gas prices for every municipality who joined in on the pool. We're awaiting the results on that. They finished it early September. So we're waiting on the final decision from the state on which vendor they were choosing. We were part of this pool last year, but they did not set a contract at that time due to gas prices being extremely high last year. Does anybody have any questions on the electrical or gas contracts? Next slide. Thank you. So here's the exciting stuff. At the high school and Hazard building, we have moved forward with a free full replacement of all interior and exterior lights at this school and Hazard. This project is 100% free, no repayment, and this was due to the Rhode Island Energy's efficiency program. When we've done the other buildings in the past, we typically were reimbursed about 30%, 40% with an on-bill repayment, which helps the school department slowly pay it back over a long period of time. I don't want to say the word luck, but it truly was lucky that we've looked at this for a while now, replacing all these lights in here to LED, and Rhode Island Energy with a energy management consultant was able to come to us and say, due to the size of this project and extra funding they had in the fourth quarter of this year, that they are covering 100% of everything. We will not pay a dime for fully LED lighting throughout both of these buildings on the property. Like I put at the bottom here, the high school project itself to put all these LED lights in is about $700,000. The cost to SK is $0. Again, when we did this a few years ago, when we did all the elementaries, it was a significant cost. You know, it's a huge upgrade because we're spending less money with more efficient lighting, but this is truly a once in a lifetime opportunity. The projected savings at the high school is 500,000 kilowatt hours, which is the amount of lighting that we're using. And again, I looked at the comparison of the energy specialist, our budget and everything, and I came up with the number of, it's about a $95,000 yearly savings compared to what we budget right now for the high school. That is very conservative. The projection from the energy specialist was well over 100,000, but again, looking at all the data, and until the system's in and tuned properly, 95 was the proper number to use there. Hazard School, the cost of the free lighting we will be getting is $119,000. Again, the cost of the SK and the taxpayers is $0, and we'll be saving 60,000 kilowatt hours and roughly $10,000 plus a year in operating costs. I know there's gonna be some questions on this one.
Yeah, my only question is, when is this project due to commence and be completed?
Next slide, please. There we go. So everything will be done by mid-December. as part of this program, again, working with Rhode Island Energy, the caveat to it was large programs in the state, buildings that need it, and towns that would like to jump into this program. Where we, again, had foresight and we're lucky was we already had this all mapped out. We'd already had pricing from the vendor, again, with a rate of 30% reimbursement. And then speaking to Rhode Island Energy, they said, we will cover that. Instead of 30%, we will cover it 100%, as long as it can be done by December of this year.
When do you project to see the actual savings
It'll start,
between these two buildings?
yep, it'll start in December. The second the lights go on, they'll be tuned. So actually, truly starting in late November, as we do room to room, we'll slowly see savings, but once it's completed, you'll see a monthly savings for our
Monthly
kilowatt,
savings.
yep,
Okay.
usage. And whereas when we did this in the past, we would still have payments on the bill each month for paying back into the program. Now, we're not getting any additional costs on our bill. So our true savings, if we use 10,000 kilowatt hours this month at the high school, in December, or we'll say call January's bill, it'll show as 1,000 to 2,000 kilowatt hours rather than 10,000 kilowatt hours, because the new LED lights are so much more efficient. And kind of what I put here is they're fully programmable, dimmable. They will take in the daylight that we get from outside and actually auto dim themselves down. So if they're set to 40% max power, they'll actually lower themselves down to 20% because they'll take the natural sunlight and balance it out. So the room is fully lit for the students, but it's not overlighting the room. This comes with health benefits, and one of the biggest benefits we've seen is that we can adjust every room in the district for light sensitive students, special needs population, or teachers. I had a teacher a couple days ago. We went into it, Broad Rock, and we set the lights near her desk down to 20% power and the rest of the room to 40% power, so that when she's working at her desk, she won't have any issues with the light sensitivity. There's also motion sensing that comes with these lights. So at nighttime, if the custodians completed that section of the building or a wing, the lights will go off. Whereas now they're going to stay on, or if there's students not in a room, the lights will dim themselves down after a set period of time. They're very sensitive. So they, even if they sneeze, it'll activate. Yeah. And these are images of the style of lighting that will be going in. Any other questions on? Okay. I just wanted to add the facility supply management is part of trying to be financially responsible and fiscally responsible to everyone in the town. The example I'll give you here is we've been bidding out individual supplies for like the custodians. Some districts, and how we done it in the past was a general bid of everything we used, about 70 items that the custodians use. You know, some are once a month, some are 30 a day of the bags, the different items. And in previous years, we've gone through procurement and used one company that would supply us for the whole year. Again, looking at this from the financial perspective, to maximize savings, modernize some of the products we're using, and then to help with supply chain, we've gone through and actually reached out to 4 MPA bidders and had them bid every single item out individually. Whereas then we will put a purchase order in to get items 1 through 3 from the low bidder A, the next 3 from whoever came in as the lowest bidder. Again, this will maximize what we're using and be best for the districts and lead to efficiency and savings. This also helps with stabilizing the budget and inventory control on the maintenance and custodial end. I just want to give you an update about the building materials and equipment. All the CCMS and Wakefield custodial supplies, maintenance tools, and general equipment that will be used in the buildings has been distributed to the other schools. We're trying to use everything that the district has purchased over the last 10, 20, 30 years where it can be used. If a room needed a new whiteboard because it was aged out and Curtis Corner has a nice brand new whiteboard, we're taking that whiteboard and moving it to Broad Rock or moving it to West Kingston. Another example, is the Broad Rock circulation desk that was in the library. We just completed the grant for the new furniture at the Broad Rock Library and got all the new furniture in. So we've taken the circulation desk from Broad Rock, which is about 20 years old, and we're actually putting in the high school front entrance. Right now, they currently have a just squared off brown desk that doesn't work for the current staff. So it'll be a nice upgrade for the high school. So that's just kind of an example of keeping what we have in the district, reusing it rather than, again, financially, fiscally responsible. Any questions? Okay, oh, there we go. And the last one I have for you is the high school maintenance shed. So I've been working with the Adam Shaw with our CTE program to look at designing a maintenance shed for the high school. Currently, we keep all of our snow supplies throughout the building. We have a snow blower that's tucked away and moved every year because due to fire code where it should be properly. So working with Adam and the CTE team, they're going to design a structure, a shed outside of the boiler room in the alleyway cove over there. We'll be able to keep snow blowers, a small tractor, gas, and all the snow equipment that we need to manage this building. Currently, we do have equipment that we don't necessarily use during the snow season because it's located in the other Columbia maintenance department shop. So during a storm, we'd have to drive it down the Columbia Street to get it to the school, to get it working and to have it on site to use it properly. Whereas this new shed will actually house that piece of equipment. It's a John Deere tractor, which would speed up hours of the custodial staff being able to keep the sidewalks cleared and the parking lot cleared in the walkways. And then currently we're in the design and estimate phase with Mr. Shaw on that. That's all I got. Any questions on?
Ms. Boyd?
Say thank you for giving the update and the PowerPoint. I'm wondering if we can get that and make sure we share it on board docs with the community. I think it does potentially answer some questions that we hear from the community. And I'm wondering with your work here tonight, what you're sharing, if that has changed any of some of the projections for deferred maintenance costs, if we can have some updates between you and our leadership to be able to be ready for that 24th meeting, because it sounds like some of the things we thought we were going to have to do are being done and gratefully being paid for, not by taxpayers of the district. So thank you for that update. And I look forward to seeing how that affects those numbers down the road.
And a good example of that is if we look at the hazard building, which is currently in our bond for the $150 million. That, I mean, it's a smaller line item. It's not small, but $100,000, which now could be taken out of left field and Studio Jade's projection because it would have fully LED lit building that would only be 3 to 4 years old at that time. Thank you.
Mr. Littlefield, I want to ask you a question about the enrollment. Sorry, I'm the numbers person. So I know there's I know RIDE has a formula for calculating per pupil expenditure, and it's a little more complicated than simply taking the total the total budget and dividing it by the total enrollment. But that said, I'm looking at this report here, and right now you have a total of 2,314 students in our South Kingstown Public Schools. That refers to butts in seats, to, use an expression.
Those are, yes,
Butts in
Those-
seats.
those are
in-
live children. Yeah,
Live children in seats in our buildings.
yes.
However, the way I understand it, these 303, that's what I got when I did a rough back of the envelope calculation, and please don't report to my students if I made a mistake. I come up with 303 students at other locations. The Transition Academy, CTE programs in other districts, blah, et cetera, et cetera. Those 303 students also have to be taken into account as part of our total population because we're paying for them. Am I correct?
Yes,
Okay, so we would take that 2,314 and add the 303 to get 2,617. Sorry, I told you, I warned you in advance. I was the numbers person. So I want to clarify that and confirm that the way I'm thinking about it is correct. That when RIDE puts our numbers into their formula to get our per pupil expenditure, those 303 students are added into the 2,314.
I believe you are correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Littlefield.
So, I may request a motion to accept the superintendent's report.
I'll make a motion to accept the superintendent's report.
I'll second.
Did we get something?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, wait. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes. Next item on the agenda is school committee business. Discussion and action on-call service bids. Is that Mr. Mahoney?
That's Mr. Mahoney, please.
Okay, come on up.
Hello, this is just a request and a recommendation from my department for typically we've been doing 3 years in the past. Last year we did a 1 year, the service contract. This is for, I believe it's 21 services that we use. Some of the examples are HVAC, plumbing, septic services. So what you see in front of you is the recommendation. Some of the services we are going to go do a rebid on based on pricing and terms and conditions. And then many of the services, unfortunately, we did not get bids on, such as gym floor surfacing. Just to give you one example, no one bid on it. So we're going to try to rebid that as a specific bid to try to get some vendors in to take care of our gym floors.
So looking at this document and hearing what you're saying, you need an inspector to inspect these bleachers and et cetera at South Kingston High School and Broad Rock.
Yep, that's a yearly service we've been doing. Unfortunately, with that one as an example, our line item will be increasing on that because the company we have been using for a long time, the owner unfortunately passed away, and the company is no longer doing service, and they did not put a bid in at this time. The family members that have taken over, I believe.
I guess I'm just surprised that this is something you have to get a bid on. And like, it's not like an ongoing thing, like, for an instance, how the fire department comes in to inspect the alarm system. Like that's annual and
So-
ongoing.
So this is a 2-year award. So this will
Okay.
be, sorry, I should have explained that from the beginning. This will be a 2-year award for
Okay.
this school year and the following school year.
Okay,
Whereas
Oh.
last year, we did a 1-year bid. And some years in the past, we've done a 3. With the current market want to go in the middle of 2 years to award the services.
Can I just ask, is there any, you said that bid was a little higher than what we budgeted? Is there anything that's far out of line with what we had budgeted for, or that was especially higher?
No, there was slight increases from years past of labor rates. I noticed, if a company was charging $140 an hour, they might have gone up to 145, 150. But the competitors were obviously higher, so we awarded to on all the cases, the lowest bidder per the whole bid. But nothing jumped substantially.
Just, okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the on-call service bid award.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
And I believe the next item on the agenda is for you as well. It is an update on the elementary schools playgrounds. Okay. Oops. And oh, Brian did that too. Clearly not tonight, so just hang out there.
I will.
Okay. Maybe, I just said I thought maybe we should get him to see the table. Oh, no. It's- Okay.
Okay, next slide, please. So looking at all the elementary playgrounds, keeping an eye on everything, and obviously Peacedale being our current priority with having one of the playground structures down there. We contacted Game Time Playgrounds to review our district-wide needs and also design a playground replacement and recertification program for us at Peacedale. We went with Game Time because they actually have a grant currently where they will match the structure cost 65 to 100%. The example I give there is if we buy a structure that costs $70,000, we'll actually only pay $35,000 for it. Part of what Game Time is doing is they're the largest playground structure company in America, but not in New England. So they're offering this grant as trying to, build great playgrounds, but also incentivize schools and municipalities to use their product. But again, they are the largest in the country. So that would be the incentive there with the grant is on the structure, which is the biggest cost when building a new playground. The costs that we'd have to pay full price on are the shipping, installation, surfacing. That would be at the normal standard rate that they would quote us on. All three elementary schools are eligible for this program. We did discuss that as we can put in 3 separate grant applications. But Peacedale was our first priority with having a certain timeline is the grant is also due in the next 2 weeks. So that is part of this process of looking at the Peacedale playground and potentially moving forward there and at the other schools. So what they did was they took a measurement of the current playground area, looked at our playground structure that's currently closed and at the other playground structure, which is over 25 years old also. And they did a rendering for us to kind of give us a visual of what it would look like to put one of their standard pieces of equipment in. This is just a first look. They have hundreds and hundreds of designs, color schemes, different additions they can add. But with that grant, again, it's the structure itself is up to 100% covered. The 65% to 100% difference is depending on how the school department decides to pay for the structure. But if we were to go with a certain payment style with this company, if this is how we go forward, it would be 100% matching for the structure cost. So here, if you're looking out from the side of the school, I'm gonna be Vanna White. So the school would be on this side of the building. Here is where the current broken structure is on this side. And here is where we have another structure currently. And we have the spider climber over here. And the tree line and the artistic walkway is back here. Next slide, please. Here's a view at a potential new replacement for the larger structure on the back side of the playground. Next slide, please. This would be a view of the larger structure replacement and the current broken structure replacement over to the left there with a smaller playground. Next slide, please. So that's the smaller section of the playground on the left there with the larger section over there. I believe that's, just check my slides. So that's my last, so let's just leave that one up, Zach, please.
Small section right there. Is that for like pre-K, K, like does that?
Yes, so that was kind of what we looked
that
at
group
was,
of kids, and then the other is like probably 2 to 5.
yep. So it would be 2 to 5 would be the pre-K, and then 5 to 12 would be the larger structure. And part of looking at this grant and kind of looking at a larger project was with replacing the smaller broken section we currently have, we would have to get the whole playground recertified, which would bring it up to 2023 standards, which would also incur a further cost to the district of modernizing it, come up to ADA standards. So that was part of looking at it with game time is if we're going to do this now, we're going to do it the right way. And especially when they're going to match potentially up to 100%. So that's why we're now looking at the 2 structure system here. The structure on the left would be a pre-K area. And then the structure on the right would be the general use area. But the thing is too, with the pre-K structures, it kind of has that stigma of it's going to be for little kids, but most of them are very minor differences. Like the equipment we have at South Road from the old South Road playground is, if you looked at it, it's just small adjustments, essentially lower to the ground and accessible for a pre-K level of kids. So the older kids would still be able to enjoy it. I just want to make sure people know it. Pre-K equipment would be truly for all the kids who, want to use it.
So in the event they match
Mhm.
100%, right? In the district and the community, the district and the town is responsible for that shipping. Is there like an estimate of what that looks like?
So we have an estimate for, again, this is just a very basic rendering. It's kind of like Legos. We can make smaller, bigger, but we do have an estimate on that, this exact design element. I kind of want to just jump back real quick is part of replacing piece on the left for our current structure. We would have had to create a whole new pathway to separate it from the other structure is another reason why we look at the bigger. We do have the pricing on this specific setup with an estimate on shipping, installation, with the matching program. But again, this can be fluid and, if it's directed that we'd like to see something different, then.
So I would assume that you won't bring that forward until after you have filled out the proper paperwork for the grant.
Yep, so the grants I've started the grants. The grant is not promissory, it's just giving them our information, letting them know who I've been working with from their company and kind of getting the ball rolling. It's not a purchase order, it's not an agreement to anything. It's just a application to say we're interested. And again, I'll be putting them in for all 3, and those should be in, if not tomorrow, by Thursday, with the deadline being October 20th on those to get the grant in.
Thank you. I want to thank you for doing the work on this playground. Because especially at Peacedale, it has been an issue for quite some time. And we really need to give our students somewhere to go play with safe, and their equipment is safe. So I do appreciate all of your work and effort into this project. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to move forward with it, because it does seem like a good deal. Something that we should be taking advantage of and not letting it bypass us. So I'm glad that, and I'm happy that they're doing that. So thank you.
And part of, just again, to kind of reiterate, is with that same aspect of we're trying to do it the right way. Was our thought was, I'm gonna be right back at this table in 2 or 3 years if we don't move the other structure. If we keep all the railroad ties around, which we had an invasion of bees this year, and so that all the wooden structures around that keep the wood chips in need to be replaced. So part of the logic here was, let's do it right now for the kids, get it done so that can be here for another 30 years, rather than every 2 years I'm coming back to you with, we have another broken piece, when we have this opportunity for the matching from game time.
Mr. Mahoney, you said something a couple of minutes ago that if we were replacing, we'd have to have the whole thing recertified. So if we're going with this company and their equipment, my understanding on this, that with this grant, their equipment is part of the grant, but then we just pay to get it here, have it installed.
Yep.
And surf the appropriate surface. So that means if we go with this company, when this is completed and installed, we don't need to go the recertification process. Am I correct? Will
would
it
be
be
recertified during installation. So
okay, that's what-
the second it's all in the ground, they would go throughout the whole playground structure, which is from that larger kind of L shape from the spider climber. That would be recertified as part of doing this. All the mulch levels would be recertified. The structures holding the mulch in, and then every piece of equipment they put in would be recertified. And that also includes the rest of the playground. So it's the whole structure within the gates. So as part of doing that, one of the items that's already been flagged for a change is there's a small gate that's on the side of the parking lot side, which when we redid the parking lot a few years ago over there, there's no longer wheelchair accessibility from the side parking lot onto there. So that gate, that would either need to be re-poured or remove that gate, because we do have 2 full-size double wide gates. You can actually fit an ambulance onto that playground. We have huge gates on the other side for the student use side of the building, but things like that would be part of the recertification. That was something we would do in-house, is refilling the mulch levels to, again, try to lower the cost on this, removing a gate if it's not ADA compliant any longer.
Thank you.
And I heard you say you're applying for all 3 schools.
Yes.
Thank you.
And part of this also too, sorry to cut you off, would be the good pieces that have been added over the years to these structures are not going to get tossed in the dumpster. We still have other playgrounds around the district that, not in my time here, but slightly before, there was some manipulative areas added to the outsides, like the tic-tac-toe things that kids can do, and number play structures that are still in good shape. So those will be kept at the maintenance shop if we need them at another site or another playground.
Shad, did you have something?
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for doing this. I think this is the right way to go, to start new instead of continuously, like you said, replacing old equipment. But I want to make sure I understand the match, just so people are clear. And when this actually comes before us with the dollar number, we're clear that when they say 100% match, they're matching $1 for every dollar we put in to the equipment
On the structure. Yep.
right?
So if it's, like I said, that's kind of like what I put in here is if if those two structures, and it can be multiple structures, so if those two structures, we'll just say added up to $70,000, the district would pay 35 of that, and they would credit.
Plus all the other costs, right?
And then
Right.
the other costs will be on top
Right,
of
so
that.
the
but we would
equipment's
get
not
like a
free when you say,
$35,000
when it's
credit from them.
100% grant, the equipment's not free, it's. They're
No,
matching,
yes, true.
they're matching
Yes, they're
100%
matching.
of what we put in.
Correct, on the,
Okay.
yep, on the
Yeah.
cost of the equipment, so.
Could you talk about timeline a little bit? Say, we get a grant
Yep.
at the end of the month or whenever they decide, and then as the, I guess, come back to us to approve.
Yep.
An actual quote, and then what does installation look like? Do they need a break, a school break, or is that possible?
So it's a two-phase approach. We'll call it three-phase approach. Currently, we are going to have a company come in and remove the broken structure. Again, it is sitting there. It is liability, and we don't want any students or towns people to be playing on it, and if anything to happen. So that's phase one, is getting that removed. If we do go forward with this and sign, all the equipment would be shipped to us, or it could be shipped to a local warehouse for storage, and it would be installed the earliest spring of 24. The representative from Game Time said they currently have March, April, May completely open. So it would be just working with us on our timeline of you don't want the ground hard still, but they, in their professional opinion, can get in at any time. It would take about a week to put everything in, recertify everything. Was a conservative estimate from them, and we'd have the brand new playground.
One week for all three elementary schools? Or
For this
1 week?
project would be, he
For
said
piece-
probably 3 to 4 days, but to be conservative, 5 days
For piece-
for Peacedale to
Okay,
rip out the old structure, or there'd be one structure at that point, rip that out, rip out all the railroad ties, and then come back and put this in.
so what about the timeline for the remaining elementary schools?
That would be to be explored. Again, they have one project they're doing it with the specific vendor they're doing in the spring, but they have an open calendar at this point. If we were to look at the other schools, or if their crew was here and finishes Peacedale, we could have it scheduled back to back, especially with those earlier months when the school is not utilizing the equipment as much. We'd like to get it in so that we can, turn over the keys to the principals and say, the equipment's ready to go, and please enjoy.
I have a question about other potential grants.
Mhm.
Has there been any research done to see if there's any other potential grants that could help to offset the costs to the district for this project?
I haven't seen any, and the people I've spoken with from the town recreation side, and the 3 vendors that I've worked with over the last 2 years on this project, I have not seen any specific grants for this. I'm not saying they're not out there. I just, I have not. seen
Like, right, no, nothing, like, I mean, I'm just asking because I
Yeah,
think
no, definitely.
it would be worth looking into
Mhm.
to see if there's any other grants that could help, because this is a grant with the the vendor
Correct.
self. So now I'm asking, is there any other statewide grants?
And I can definitely look into that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I just had a question about the, and you might be getting into this later. I don't know if this is the end of your slide deck or not, but you mentioned the PD, the rest of the structures at Peacedale are 25 years old. Sorry.
I believe so. I don't have the exact age in front of me.
Okay.
The climber is newer. I believe that's in the 8 to 10-year-old range. And the trust has looked at that, and other vendors who come in, and that would be fully recertifiable and is in good shape. That will need to be replaced at some point, but that is a much lower cost than an actual structure. The larger structure, the slides and slide decks.
Right. I was just curious, do you know the ages of the other at the Tunic and West Kingston, what the ages of those playgrounds are?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay,
have
thank you.
those. I can report they all are showing signs of aging and wear. Which is a good sign because they're getting used, but at the same time, they definitely need more attention. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item on the agenda is the school building committee updates. I'm not sure.
Hello, Brian Mahoney, Vice Chair, School Building Committee.
You
So
have many hats, Brian.
I do. I
Thank you.
So we did have a meeting on September 28th at 5 p.m. in the council chambers to meet before the October meeting where all three bodies will come together. That was not on our initial plans, but seeing as getting all three bodies together, we wanted to have an informational meeting and kind of meet with Left Field and Studio Jade. So we had discussions with the RIDE stage 2 submittal. With the submittal process to RIDE, we're still on track. Everything is still in process. And then we, like I said, we met with Studio Jade and Left Field with some updates, and also as a committee, we gave them feedback on information we'd like to see them bring to the table as part of our meeting, joint meeting with all three bodies of potential savings, HVAC costs at a new high school, just the data that they can truly provide as experts in that field for the committee.
I don't think anybody has any questions. I think we're just waiting to do the few things that need to get done until we can get to that actual meeting with all the stakeholders involved, and I'm looking forward to it myself.
I did have a question. When do you expect, you said things are still in process for stage 2. When do you expect to get a response from?
They Left Field and Studio Jade had spoken to RIDE with the updates. They had provided RIDE all the updates on the questions that RIDE had sent back after the initial. We provided all the data to RIDE, so they're in that process right now of just reviewing the questions that they had. Examples, Studio Jade would reach out to me asking for a certain bill or a certain date on something. That's a question RIDE had. It goes back to RIDE for them to look at. But as far as Left Field and Studio Jade presented, we're still on our timeline of if the bond can get voted forward, we'd be in our same timeline for RIDE submittals.
Anything further for Brian? All right, thank you, Mr. Mahoney. All right, next item on the agenda is discussion and action on a second read for our tutoring for pay policy. I'll turn that over to Ms. Boyd.
Thank you. And I definitely invite my fellow committee members to comment if the rest of the larger committee has questions. This policy was brought to us by former members of our administration with a request to revise a policy. Like many of our policies, this was one that had not been reviewed in quite a while. I believe it was adopted in 1960, and how we define tutoring has certainly changed, and the needs of our students have changed. So the policy subcommittee reviewed suggested content for this policy and then submitted it to this body for a first read, which was approved unanimously. There were a few questions from the committee at this time, and I posed those questions to our legal team, which said, just to ensure that, and to our administration, that in no way does this policy hinder our staff members from supporting students, for example, with a PTO program or an after-school club, if that is something they choose to pursue. It just dictates what it means to tutor for pay for specific students and for specific students who are in employees' classrooms during a given year or time frame. So I just wanted to clarify that. I think that was the only question we had when it came to the table the first time.
I don't know what other committee members think or what Ms. Boyd would think about this, but I have a question on a student being advised to get a tutor by a teacher, and then that teacher's immediate supervisor takes on that tutoring role. I don't know what other people think about that, if the policy subcommittee considered that as something that needed to be vetted, and I don't know if our legal counsel has any input on that.
And just like that, the spirit of the update to the policy is to accord with the Rhode Island General law about fundraising, and it looks like it's talking about fundraising in schools, but I think ultimately it gets to this, the spirit of it and the heart of it is not to have a financial gain from your position within the school district. So I'm not quite sure how that specific scenario would play out. It might look unseemly, but I think by letter of the law it might be okay. I'm not sure. I think I'd seek legal input on that as well.
Just looking at this policy, it seems like, I mean, it says that it would have to be the student or the parent who approaches the tutor. So the supervisor couldn't say, well, your teacher said you needed, right? It couldn't be the supervisor approaching the student. So the student or parent would have to initiate that request, which in my mind solves for the biggest concern, which is them saying, the sort of a teacher feeding tutoring clients. Maybe is that the concern? I'm not sure.
Yes, that's the concern, that I don't know where the initial recommendation came from, if it came from the parents, but then it just doesn't set right with me that if I'm a department chair, for example, overseeing this particular teacher who then is funneling tutoring jobs my way.
So the way that the policy is written, it's written as you can choose to use your expertise to tutor a student at the request of the student or the parent, but not on the school property during school hours. So there's this little, it's in here. It says individuals providing private tutoring or instruction for pay do so as independent contractors. So in other words, you can't be the SK school employee in that moment, and you cannot execute that during school business hours.
Clarify, I think that same paragraph that Ms. Whitford read, paragraph at the end of that paragraph on page 2, It also says there must be a notification in their building administrator, because we wanted to empower building administrators to know, is there a trend? Is there a specific need? Is this a pattern? And please know that this aspect has not been an issue. That's not why I came to the policy committee, but we want to be able to have some means that if there is a concern, that the building leader is aware of it and is able to address that need appropriately.
So is there any further discussion? You know, the purpose of the policy coming back to the school committee for a first or a second read is for your input. So if for any reason you feel like this particular policy needs some more work, you can send it back to the policy. I just want to put that out there because I don't want you all to think that because it's a second read, you have to approve it. You do not, okay?
Just one other thing on that. So there is, I think, what seems very broad to me, that tutoring can't create a conflict of interest, right? Which potentially there would be in Ms. Brusso's example, right? So I am tutoring the student of someone I supervise. Is that a potential conflict? Because now I expect that student to get a better grade. I'm not sure how that would exactly play out, but if someone saw that as a concern, they could certainly raise it and say, I think there's a conflict of interest here with this student being tutored by my supervisor, or, you know, if there's some sort of self-dealing around trying somehow funneling student. I'm not sure exactly how that would work, but I think this what seems like a very broad conflict of interest prohibition seems like it would cover it.
Sure, I agree with you, but I think I was, and I can't find the statement here, but I was relieved to see that you know, if a building educator is tutoring a student who is enrolled in that school, that the building principal needs to be notified. So I am, you know, somewhat appeased at that piece of it. I think we need to keep an eye on this situation.
So we need to take a vote. So I can't make the motion, so somebody needs to make a motion to either approve it or send it back.
I'll make a motion to approve the second reading of the tutoring for pay policy.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I'm gonna need to do a roll call on this motion. So, Mr. Bradley Chair.
Aye.
Mr. James Receiver.
Aye.
Miss Melissa Boyd,
Aye.
Miss Michelle Russo,
Aye.
and myself, aye. So that motion does pass. The tutoring policy will be posted as is. Next on the agenda is a drafted. Oh, okay.
I just wanted to say, because Terry's not here, usually she and I will work together where I will create a clean copy. And again, just make sure that our legal team as well as our administration sees this, and then it gets posted in our policy board docs update with the correct revision date. So I'll just make sure it will look a little different to the community without the highlighted information. That will have a clean copy posted as soon as possible.
Thank you, Melissa. So, next item on the agenda is, a resolution to prevent book banding. It is a draft. It has been, it's circulating through districts, and I want to have Mr. Share speak to this because this was brought to his attention.
Sure, thank you for putting this on the agenda, and this, like you said, was brought to me by a community member. Last week was Banned Books Week. Of course, we didn't meet last week, so we'll take care of it this week. I think, it spoke to me because we have I think a very robust library program. We have excellent librarians in all our schools, which is unusual. I'm not sure if everyone in the community knows that a lot of schools, especially elementary schools in the state, don't have libraries. Our librarians are acquiring and recommending books, our educators are acquiring and recommending books, and there's been a lot of talk nationally about what books are going to be allowed in schools. And I think it's important for all of our educators to know what the position of this body is, and that they're going to be supported in the education that they're providing. I also think it's important for our students. I think about my son who, when his teacher found out that he liked baseball, started lending him books about baseball. And, he started reading about kids who were like him. And it interested him and it kept him interested in reading. And I think all our kids should have the same opportunity to read books that include characters they recognize, that are like them, that look like their family, that speak to them, and that interest them, because we know kids are more likely to read and stay engaged in reading if the subject matter is familiar and interesting to them. And teachers and librarians should be able to recommend those books to kids, no matter what their background is, no matter what their family looks like. They should all be able to see themselves in the books that they're reading. And lastly, I think one of the key skills we should be imparting on our students is critical thinking. And in order to think critically, we need texts that are challenging, that make us think, that give us different points of view, that maybe introduce us to things we haven't heard of before, or people we're not familiar with. And those should be available in our schools for students to engage with. And I think if we can teach critical thinking to our kids, we've prepared them for the world. So that's there's a lot more. That's a long resolution, but for me, those are the reasons that I wanted to bring it forward.
Thank you to our chair and our administration and to Mr. Scheer for bringing this to our attention. I also want to echo that in February 2723, our body brought forward a policy 7410 for library media selection, evaluation, and reconsideration, with the incredible input from our media professionals who spent weeks coming to policy to ensure that our policy was up to date, was comprehensive, and also provided a means for parents to connect with the library staff if they had questions, a form that is live linked if they had a concern. And so we really wanted to make sure that communication was key and that how we approached this process was very clear. So please know that I wanted to ensure that folks know that policy is accurately reflecting this current body's approach to the work, and that I support this resolution in full as well.
I would like to thank Mr. Scheer for bringing this to our attention also, and I completely support this resolution, having children, or they're not children anymore, they're adults, but as children, they were huge readers that were encouraged by the librarians in their school, their teachers. And I agree with Mr. Scheer's statement that I think children should be able to read books that interest them and that depict families that look like their family, whatever that looks like. And characters that look like them. I also am a very strong, very, very strong believer in the fact that as a parent, you absolutely have the right to say, I don't want my child reading this book. But you do not have the right to say, I don't want any children reading this book. I don't think that's any human being's prerogative. So I very strongly support this resolution.
I very strongly support this resolution as well. I feel we have a right to read. We have a right to choose what we read. And nobody can take that from us, right? So banning books is not a thing. Reading books is. So I fully support this resolution 100%.
Just like to echo all the comments. I fully support this resolution. And I personally feel very proud to sit on a committee that where there's other school committees in other parts of the world, the nation that are banning books. I'm proud to sit on one that's saying we will not do that. And I agree wholeheartedly that, yeah, a parent can choose not to have their kid read a book, but we can't make that choice for other parents and other kids. So 100% support this. I'm glad you brought it to the table, Mr. Chair.
That said, I'd like to have a motion to approve the support for this resolution that has been presented to us.
So I will make a motion to approve this resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. And now,
I'm gonna make a comment.
okay,
Now that this resolution has passed, I would request that administration or Miss Marcia Salt, who's ever in charge of that, would send it to our local representatives and senators, to the Rhode Island Association of School Committees. And thank you. I knew I was leaving one out, so thank you, Ms. Boyd, to the town council. So that it gets distributed widely. And typically when the Rhode Island Association of School Committees would receive something like this, they would forward it to other school committees in the state. Thank you.
thank you. And now could we have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, I will make that motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned at 8:37. Thank you and have a good night.